That's Delightful,
a member of the Pod Bros Network.
Welcome to That's Delightful. Online at facebook.com/That's Delightful. Now time for That's Delightful.
I'm going to go home and rage bait.
Rage bait.
Yep, no lotion, fast as possible. Squeeze harder, twice as hard as usual.
That sounds like it would hurt.
Rage bait. Nipple clamps.
That would be fun.
It's That's Delightful, episode 58. Patreon.com/That's Delightful. Facebook.com. That's Delightful. On Twitter, at DelightfulCast. Now, coming up on the show, we're going to be joined by Chris from FOMOcast. FOMOcast is a podcast you can find at podbros.com, one of our friends and fellow podcasts inside the Pod Bros Network. Before we get to Chris, we want to talk a little politics. Chris, by the way, is going to be the second conservative that we've had on our show. So if we're keeping track, we've had two liberals in Simon from The Slants, the band that won the Supreme Court case to be able to register theslants.com, and we had the rabbi from my congregation on, and then we had Michelle from Rants and Reason. She was conservative. Karen. We had Karen from Rants and Reason. She's conservative, and we're gonna have Chris on, and he'll be conservative number 2. I would say that we have been fair and balanced.
My sister is Mormon but liberal. So
Mormon but liberal. Okay.
So we have a nice little capper.
You know what? I didn't count her only because I don't know why I didn't count her. I'm an asshole.
Well,
yeah, what a dick.
And let's not forget my sister, who's just.
She didn't go on mic, so she doesn't count. Shauna, come be on the podcast for reals.
And you will count, Shauna.
Kelly has rage issues. Go ahead.
Kelly has rage issues.
Kelly is a white hot ball of rage. Here's
what we're going to do so we can give Chris some time on this show, because I think he's got some interesting stuff to say here coming up. We're going to pick a couple of things and just touch on them real quick. Of course, we rip off the Trump Band-Aid. This week with Trump, there's a couple of things we can touch on.
Lots of things.
Lots of things. There's North Korea, and how everybody's saying Trump is the reason for the season.
The reunification of Korea. It's all Trump.
It's all Trump, according to most people. And to that, you guys would say?
No. What did he do? I don't know. What did he do?
It's probably true.
What did he do?
Well, he probably said, I'll put a hotel in your kitchen.
Yeah. Everybody was just like, yep, right after. They were like, yep, it was Trump. And it's like, but what did he do? I don't, he tweeted at Kim Jong-un.
He is officially nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, but so were a lot of people. That's not. Europe will not give him a Nobel Peace Prize.
Kelly smash.
Now, are you raging?
He gets a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm be so pissed.
I read that a majority of what took place was A, the failing test site, mixed in with B, sanctions from China, mixed in C with sanctions from the UN, and the U.S. was just kind of...
sprinkled a couple of tweets calling him a little fat boy.
Yeah.
That's probably what pushed it over.
Rocket boy, little rocket boy.
Little rocket man.
So, yeah, and China is the big deal here. And there's a lot of fuck you from North Korea, because China has always backed North Korea. In North Korea, they finally had to start putting pressure on North Korea when North Korea was doing the testing. So China wants the peninsula, the Korean peninsula. And so North Korea and South Korea are like, hey, fuck you. You know who gets credit for it? Trump. And I think that's really what this is about, is they're both saying, yep, it's Donald Trump.
You know what I think is neat, or would be a neat narrative here, is if the world just decided, you know what, we really might end up blowing ourselves up if this continues. Let's just stage like a world peace scenario. We'll give Trump a medal. They can impeach him. He'll go home happy with his medal, and then we can resume business.
They'll give him a participation trophy.
Yeah, they'll just be like, hey, you did it. Good job, Donald.
So,
hey, you really figured it out.
I think there's somebody that's like, you know what? No, fuck it. Here you go. Go ahead, give him it.
Donnie, we didn't think you could do it, but you really did. Okay, nap time. Put him in deep freeze with his medal.
Get him his juice box.
Okay, now in the middle of all of this is the ongoing issue with Stormy Daniels,
the Mueller Daniels,
Mueller, the investigation, and Trump's personal
Giuliani.
lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, resurfacing and looking old as fuck.
Remember when he was everybody's hero?
Oh yeah,
but it was right after 9/11. He was everybody's hero, but that ended.
After 9/11, we went from George W. Bush, wipe that spittle off the left side of his mouth, to George W. Bush, American president. You're either with us or you're against us. And everybody was like, fuck yeah, GWB.
Well, and let's just be fair here. Rudy Giuliani at the time was a little bit more sharp. He was a little
He's
bit
on
more
his
sharp.
game.
Hey, shifting gears real quick. So Michelle Wolf was the keynote comedian / speaker at the Correspondents' Dinner at the White House, which Trump has famously snubbed now 2 years in a row because of the fake news media and his war with the media. Michelle Wolf came under tremendous fire because she was wildly inappropriate with most of her comments. What are your guys' take on her dinner, her set, if you will?
It is a dinner that is meant to celebrate the freedom of speech.
Yes. So it's the dinner meant to celebrate the First Amendment.
Sure.
And, I think, so Jim Gaffigan is a very well-known, clean comedian.
Innocuous. Yeah.
So he's not one that's big on political controversy, or he doesn't even use curse words.
His take on Hot Pockets was pretty edgy.
Right.
Pocket.
Or camping.
Dead pocket.
So Jim Gaffigan went on Colbert to promote his Noble Ape album coming out, and he kind of touched on this. Colbert asked him, like, how do you feel about this thing? And he said, as a comedian, as a part of the craft, he said, I really think it was spot on. I mean, it was great. He said it was just very well executed. He said people are getting really sensitive about things to the point that nobody wants to hear anything anymore about politics at all.
Yeah.
So he said, and it's happening everywhere. And he said, it kind of shocked me that the other side of the spectrum, so many people came out against it. Like Laura Scar, whatever her name is. I don't care about her. But the one that's on Mornings Joe.
Oh, Mika?
That's her
Mika
name.
Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough?
That one. Laura.
Morning Joe.
I confused
wake
a
up
whole
to
bunch
them
of
every
white
morning.
women.
Mika. Yeah, I mean, it's the toughest room in the world, right? Like, it's how gutsy do you have to be to walk into a room with the people? They haven't agreed to be roasted. I think that they're sort of there trying to put their game face on. Usually the president has the gall to show up, whoever the president is.
Well,
Donald Trump will not go near it because he can't handle it. But, other people, Sarah Huckabee Sanders showed up and got burned pretty hard. But how gutsy do you have to be to show up and look at people in the face and speak truth to power, like right there in the room? Like, kudos. And sometimes people come in, some years people come in and sort of, do the Jay Leno routine where it's all innocuous and...
You ever know when you ate a piece of cheese?
Have you ever noticed how...
Well, and that's, Gaffigan said that they actually asked him to do
Really?
it. And he
Oh
was,
my
he's
gosh.
like, I wouldn't. I'm not going to do it. He was like, I
Have you ever noticed how Donald Trump likes the Hot Pockets?
and that's basically what he said. He was like, I'm not going to go in there and do that. It's just not my style.
But the gold standard has been Stephen Colbert. I mean, it's interesting that Jim was on his show because he was the previous guy that walked in and fucked shit up. Like, he looked right at George W. and told him what was up and got totally flamed for it.
But I think there's for some reason there's a disproportionate amount of heat on Michelle Wolf, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's because she's not as well known. Like, I honestly, I'd never heard of her until this. I'm sure other people have. I'm not necessarily a purveyor of the comédie, but
Le comédie.
but I think, I've seen some of the things that people are kind of flaying her for, and I don't understand why. Like, the whole, well, she was criticizing Sarah Huckabee Sanders' looks. No, she wasn't. That's not
It
what
wasn't
she
clear
said.
that she was doing that at all. She made a comment about her eyeshadow, but it was a more comment about how she...
The smoke of the lies that she told. That's all
Right.
it was. It wasn't. She wasn't calling her ugly.
Right.
She was calling her smoky eyes,
You
which
had
is
to kind of stretch, but people can feign outrage if it suits the narrative they're trying to come up with.
Right. And
By the way, I gave my partner on my radio show smoky eyes. I did a smoky eyes tutorial. Makeup.
Really?
I can do smoky eyes now, just so you know.
no.
Will you give me smoky eyes?
If you would like smoky eyes,
I
I'd be
would.
delighted to give you smoky eyes.
So, yeah, I think Michelle Wolf is catching a lot of heat that she shouldn't be catching, and I think right now the left is trying so hard to overcompensate and pretend
Yeah.
like we're fair.
It's true.
And it's bullshit. We're not. You're just as guilty of sitting there talking shit about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who I could go on.
There's a million other things you could bring up.
The woman has no affect. She can't. Every time she speaks, it's the same face. She's got the like the epitome of the resting bitch face. And I say that because I have it too. But it's like everything she says has the same facial expression.
She also has like the hardest job in the world.
No, sorry. See, that's the left right there overcompensating for it. She's a fucking liar, and she sits here and turns out lie after lie after fucking lie. It's not that hard when you're lying.
And she does it with it's not like you can see her really struggling through it. She turns it around and shames people for asking questions.
Right.
Like she really, and that's why I think it was really brave what Michelle Wolf did, is that she called bullshit on somebody who is in a position to be the conduit between the White House and the American public, and instead she is spewing propaganda.
Right.
And every White House press secretary has done that to a degree, but she has elevated even beyond what Sean Spicer did.
Right.
This makes us miss Sean Spicer, right?
I mean, he was at least not good at it. She's pretty good at, like, she shuts people down.
She's like, no, I'm just done talking. And, like, she does. She shames you for asking. She shames the reporters for asking questions. And it's ridiculous.
What did she do before this?
She's Mike Huckabee's daughter. That's what she did.
She was just home being Mike Huckabee's daughter full time.
And then...
And they were like, hey, we checked out some videos on your Instagram. You'd be good at this. Come on in.
But Trump doesn't operate like that. It's like, do you like me enough? Okay, I'll give you a job.
She probably, I mean, I would, we should probably look up what she did, because she's a professional woman who has lots of skills.
No, raise your hand if you give a shit. No, Kellyanne Conway has a ton of skills. I have, I don't love Kellyanne Conway, but I can respect what she does.
I don't know. I used to respect it until she does the same thing that Sarah does.
She's better at it.
She makes people feel shitty for asking questions.
No, she does the double talk. The double speak is really hard to do.
She's the one that coined alternative facts as a phrase.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's talent.
You know, if anything, before we switch gears, if anything, we can thank this presidency for giving us the phrase fake news and alternative facts.
No, actually, fake news came from the left. We did it to ourselves. We called everything that the right did fake news and said that was the reason Trump got into power. And so he just
ran with fake news media?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good for him. Hey, good for him.
He embraced it. It's like... Well, no,
good job, Donnie.
All right, Facebook.com/That's Delightful. Also on Twitter @DelightfulCast. So we're going to talk with a gentleman coming up here in just a moment. His name is Chris. He has a podcast called FOMOcast. And when we bring him in here, I want to give a little backstory here. Chris lives in the Central Valley just like us, and we've always kind of talked a little bit back and forth on Facebook. We've never actually... In fact, this is actually right now, this show is the first time over the last year where we've talked more heavily than before. We're in the same podcast network. This is the first time, I think, where we've ever actually used each other's voices to communicate back and forth. It's always been through Facebook. But when we were getting our podcast started, Chris had hit me up because I think I posted a picture of our equipment, and he was like, yeah, you know, I keep thinking about putting a podcast together, but I just don't know. And so we kind of, and I don't know if you two know this or not, but we kind of started our podcasts together because we were kind of going back and forth, exchanging ideas and talking to each other about what's working and what's not working. And so, So a year ago, because we just turned a year old, and Chris, I think you guys are coming up on being a year old, right?
We just turned a year old too. My time hop showed up with me talking to Arnaldo, my co-host. I think it was last week about getting everything started, and our first episode was up about this week last year.
Okay, so happy birthday to you guys.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you very much.
We're all hitting that 1 year mark, which is pretty awesome.
It's pretty fun, and it's different.
How do you say different? Explain different.
It's weird because mostly like if you listen to the good podcast, what I've learned is it's just more of friends talking, but it's either more blatant or more free speechy. It's not as held back because, you know, in today's society, you have to be kind of quiet about what you say. Our ongoing gimmick on our podcast is how much we hate Rotten Tomato and how Rotten Tomato is ruining movie experiences for people. And if that was like a normal TV show or something, they're going to be like, oh, don't badmouth them because they're owned by a Fandango or they pay money into certain things. So I feel like with podcasts, you're able to do free speech so much. It's just a little bit different.
We were talking about this last week when we were talking about the Golden State Killer getting busted. And Kelly, you'd mentioned that was kind of, because you've been in a podcast way more than I have. over the course of your
Oh,
time.
like listening to him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning that podcasts were really kind of the catalyst for this whole like almost underground movement of like true crime, where people aren't really necessarily bound by laws or conformities. They can go out and they can rustle up these old crimes and bring in old evidence and stuff like that.
Crowdsourcing murder mystery solving.
Or in your case with FOMOcast, when you're talking about movies and TV shows, and like you said, you're not really held to any sort of constraints by a network of don't talk shit about the Avengers, because that's going to cost us a lot of money.
Exactly, and that's a big thing for us too, because one thing we learned, like Arnaldo, some of his friends were like, because I was bad mouthing the Ghostbusters, the women's version, and I said it's not because of the women. I go, it's because it was a bad movie. I go, but the problem is if you say that, then you're being sexist. And I'm like, that's not the case. The movie was just bad. I go, I love movies.
Are you telling me that Chris Hemsworth didn't do it for you in those tight jeans?
He was the saving grace of that movie. But I think they focused a little too much on him and his situation. So it was one of those things. And, that the funny part about entertainment-wise is, as we talked about earlier about the Kanye thing, is so many people are on so many different spectrums. That's why he's so interesting right now, is because everyone's opinion is different. Usually it's, you can't say this about so-and-so, you can't say that about so-and-so. And so I've been having fun bad-mouthing Rotten Tomatoes, because in case you didn't know, there's a guy that his only goal in life is to write bad reviews about 100% Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yep.
So
it gets
and
you
that's
a lot
all he
of
does. He's
attention.
known for that.
So just to clarify, though, if you don't like the Ghostbusters with the all-female cast, it's not necessarily that you're sexist, but you have a horrible taste in movies. That movie is fucking awesome.
No.
They busted hella ghosts in that movie.
Leslie Jones is the shit.
Thank God there was a dude in that movie to save the day.
Here's the thing, though.
Cut off your
That's the
penis.
problem. The problem with the movie is that there may be good parts in it with different people, but I'm judging it by a whole. We just reviewed Super Troopers 2, and it was a great movie, but as a whole, it's very...
It was all over the place, but it was a lot of fun.
No,
It was a lot of fun, but there's so much nostalgia stuff in it. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, I get the joke, Liter Cola, it was in the previews kind of thing. But I am looking forward to the all-female reboot of the Ocean's 11, because it's a different take. So I don't like when they try and redo something that's the exact same thing over again, and it just kind of, the jokes didn't land, and it wasn't there for me.
If I'm hearing you right, if they're going to redo something, so like the Ghostbusters movie, and I'm, because my wife is right next to me, I'm going to say I thought it was a funny movie. No, I did think it was a funny movie. Kristen Wiig is one of my favorite actresses. I think she's phenomenal. But if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is if you're gonna reboot a movie, so for something like the Ghostbusters, the end game with the ghost was, it wasn't Zool like it was in the first one, but are you saying it tried too hard to mirror the first one when they should have?
They had to have a secretary, which was Chris Hemsworth. Well, hey, it's fine by me. But they're trying to have too much stuff that's similar. Whereas if you watch the trailers, from what I get from what we've seen so far for the Ocean's 8, it seemed more of these girls are all moved on in their life. They're not still pulling cons. They're actually regular women now who are helping. Some of them are not even real criminals. They're just artists or whatever, and they're getting pulled into this scheme. So it's a new concept based on something that's kind of a base of a movie in general. I mean, in reality, almost half the movies besides the Marvel movies have some sort of basis from a different movie. It's kind of funny, but eventually you're like, I think I've seen this before, and it's like, oh no, it was this movie that just had a similar tone. So
if they're going to reboot it, give you something fresh, give you a fresh take.
Give me a fresh take. I obviously I do love the Marvel movies. I'll love anything Disney puts out right now because they just have so much money. Even if it's mediocre, the cinematography of it alone usually outdoes everything else, So
what's your take on like the Disney, they're making live action remakes of all of their, animated classics. Do you feel like they're breathing enough life into each of those, or is that more of the same?
I honestly do. I saw the one for Dumbo just recently, and it's ridiculously unique. And I think that what they're doing with the difficulty of trying to recreate a cartoonish movie into the live action, I mean, obviously they're on the cutting edge of all this different technology that we can never even imagine. So they're doing a great job.
It's like they're imagineering things.
I wish they would slow down. They just need to slow down because it feels like I'm getting behind 7-8 movies because I want to watch this independent film or something smaller, and then I get 8-9 weeks behind because they're dropping a movie every other week. You know, the only movie I'm not looking forward to, I don't know if they're affiliated with, is that new Winnie the Pooh movie because it looks super creepy. And we talked.
It does.
It's
like
super weird.
You should watch it if you're stoned on the marijuana. I bet you it's better.
I officially cannot. I have a job that federally I'm not allowed to touch that at all.
Me too.
I know.
This dude works with trains.
Oh, that's where you went wrong. Go get a job at Denny's. They have a
Lower the bar. You don't need good health care or a really good salary or anything like that.
Don't need any of that, do I?
So we could use an outside voice on this because we have a recurring argument that happens on our podcast. If you want to weigh in on this, I don't know if you have an opinion here, but we regularly get into a bit of a Marvel versus DC spat.
Marvel.
Ian is a hardcore Superman guy from way back, and I mean the Superman movies objectively have been shitty.
That's not true.
So that's the scientific term, I think.
Awful.
But I think the argument comes down often to Captain America versus Superman. They're sort of, you can contrast and compare their powers a little bit. Cap sort of came up to his powers by being scrawny and earning it.
He didn't earn it. He
showed that he was
nominated.
But he showed that he could hack it in the army even without muscles or anything. And then Soup just crashed on the planet. He couldn't hack it
with no muscles. And that's why they were like.
Anyway, I'm tipping the scales here. But what's your take on Soup versus Cap?
See here, kid, you can't do it. So come on in here. Let me inject you with some shit.
For my personal things, I'm always be a Marvel person. I love Deadpool's my favorite. I collect comics, but I'm actually gonna have to say that sadly, Superman. I'm going to go for Superman in that fight against Captain America.
That's right.
What the?
Blasphemy. You are...
It's not who would win in a fight. It's who's the more interesting character.
Superman.
For me, it is. Have you guys been watching that new show on Sci-Fi called Krypton?
It's an amazing show.
You guys are the worst.
It is an amazing show, and it's made me love Superman that much more. For me personally, why I'm more interested in Superman is just because of the simple fact that no matter how bad any of the movies have been, if you take his core story out of all those ones, his story in general is amazing. It's the crap that gets thrown into it that screws everything up. So it's not him in general. It's the stupid things. Obviously, his stupid mustache thing from Justice League.
That was awesome.
Screwed everything up. But, his story is so amazing. And obviously, I grew up watching The Adventures of Lois and Clark, then watching Smallville.
Smallville I like. That was a good one.
But if you follow the story from when he was a kid to going up, he's the only superhero I can tell you in the comics that I've seen who takes multiple iterations throughout all the different things. Where he's been the Green Lantern, he's been at different iterations throughout history. And when you have a character you can do that much stuff with, it just shows that his story and his background is that much more in depth.
So last Superman question: George Reeves, Christopher Reeves, Henry Cavill. I leave Dean Cain out. Only because it was TV, and I like The Adventures of Lois and Clark, but it was still a little too campy for me, so I'm going to leave that one out of this one. So just the major cinematic: George Reeves, Christopher Reeves, Henry Cavill. Who was the best Superman?
Obviously, you like the original with Christopher Reeves, but the one thing I did like, when I watch a movie, I do go afterwards and look into stuff about how Henry Cavill refused to take steroids. How he said he wanted to make sure he had the real physique. There's no touch-up, nothing like that. And just his dedication to it. And people didn't like it because he showed emotion. But, what would you do if you were the only person on the planet that was the way you were and basically you could never die for the most part? It's pretty emotional. So I think he's portrayed him the best so far. I'm really hoping that they throw him in a Batman movie. I don't know what Cavill's his contract is, but with all these alternative universes they're doing with the new Joker movie and stuff, you never know who could be the next Superman. When
it comes to Henry Cavill's interpretation of Superman, he showed a lot more range, a lot more emotion. Superman wasn't this one-dimensional, happy-go-lucky guy who works at the Daily Planet to keep his ear to the grindstone so he knows when things are going shitty.
But that's who Soup is in the comics, you guys.
But that's not. Superman is a conflicted person.
Superman is literally the epitome of a privileged white dude with lots of power that just can't resolve himself.
We don't know what the ghetto was like up on Krypton.
Oh my god, I'm so sad. I can't save my daddy.
So for those who support Captain America, how would you guys feel the rumors being that somebody else will take over
That's
for
bullshit.
Captain America. And
He's going. Yeah, his contract's up, and I'm gonna miss Chris Evans. But
my hope
Winter
was
Soldier.
Anthony Mackie, but I don't think he's going to renew his contract either, because in the comic, Falcon becomes Captain America.
Right.
So I was really excited to maybe see that, because I like his character portrayal of Falcon, but who knows what's going to happen with the way that Avengers ended. So
I was told it was
these
Winter
people
Soldier.
haven't seen it yet, so I'm dying. I can't discuss spoilers with them.
As much as I don't like Captain America, what about that guy that played Rocketeer 25 years ago? Is he still looking for work?
Billy Connolly?
Yeah, can we get him to be Captain America?
Who?
The
I think
Rocketeer?
he's a little old.
Yeah, he's playing. He's still around.
He's Cap with arthritis.
Tell you what, though, the Rocketeer was ahead of its time, y'all.
He's sitting
That
there
was an
complaining about the
amazing movie.
millennials.
I remember watching that was on Disney Channel probably every other weekend.
Oh, yeah. Between that and Flubber, you couldn't go wrong.
Don't be lumping Rocketeer with Flubber.
No, those were just the ones that were on all of the time.
It's true.
So you wanted to talk about Kanye.
Yeah, man, I don't know what's going on. It seems like it's
Yeezy?
been like a trend of like once every 3 months he has either an
manic
epiphany
episode?
where everyone loves him, or he goes on a mental breakdown and the whole entire world hates him. He's super unstable. It's insane.
I always love it when you have somebody who's like a darling of one side of the political spectrum, and then he flips the script or she flips the script, and the other side is like, hey, welcome to our party. And the other side's like, we don't know you anymore. Kanye's jumped sides so many times.
It's interesting. I get some of his points he says, but usually what ends up happening is every intelligent point he makes. I'm going to say I lean conservative, being a farmer and everything, but he says some stuff and I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden he says slavery was an option. And I was like, wait, what?
I think that's everybody. So Kanye West, and there's like a book that could be written about Kanye's mental problems, but he's always going to be a complex character, and he's always going to have strong opinions, and you can't dispute his creative genius.
Lyrically, he's fantastic, and I do know, I've heard multiple times from many people saying he blames himself for his mom dying because he was the one paying for her to get plastic surgery done, and then after that, he started taking pills and things like that will screw you up, but it's insane. I can't remember, some comedian was saying it's the Jenners are doing this to him, and it's their mind control or something like that.
Honestly,
it's getting more and more bizarre by the day.
I have to say, like, just from what you see outside, I think Kanye West and Kim Kardashian probably have the healthiest relationship of any of the Jenner
I was
family.
going to say the same
They really
thing.
do. I mean,
they seem to
they
keep
genuinely
each other-
care about each other.
But the rest of that circus around him is just a fucking sideshow.
Right. It's not their fault. He's fucked up. I mean, he just is. He's just a train wreck.
I've spent considerable amount of time around you guys. By the way, Chris, if the swearing bothers you, let us know. We're cussers.
Oh, no, we just don't on our podcast because so many people have younger kids that listen, because we're talking about gaming and stuff
Yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
And not many kids are wanting to hear about what's going on in North Korea, I don't think, for your guys.
We're going to talk about Fallout 4 and Kim Jong-un.
We gotta try gaming sometime.
But what I was going to say was it sounds, because I've been around you guys enough that I pick up on some of the psychological terms. And when you guys talk about different symptoms for people, I almost get the feeling that Kanye is bipolar with manic episodes. Am I accurate in saying he displays characteristics like that?
It's with the caveat that it's not possible to diagnose somebody you haven't met, and it's quite difficult to observe somebody on the television or in the media and get any sort of accurate read on their behavior. He certainly appears to exhibit symptoms of both depression and mania.
And mania? Okay.
At times.
So when he goes on rampages like this, and Chris, I'm sure you've read his Twitter. His Twitter's insane right now.
It's my favorite Twitter.
It's
that and the Florida man Twitter. I'll go on those two Twitter accounts. That's pretty much all I follow because everything else is garbage. It's fun looking at those two.
You got to tell Michelle about the Florida man.
Oh, the Florida man's my favorite Twitter. That one, you see people getting shot over sleeping with their cousins. I mean, it's just it's
You see murder.
Go on.
it's where they think it was where they first announced that guy was on bath salts eating that guy's face. I think that was the first place that reported it, and then it's gone uphill from there. It's my favorite Twitter, and I have it favorited. That way it pops up first in my feed whenever I'm on there.
FOMOcast, friendly for your kids.
Yes.
Florida man, not so much.
Not so much.
But when you read a Twitter account like this, how long do manic episodes like that typically last, if this were one?
So, well, I mean, we can't speak to that, but we can say that the manic episodes typically cap out at about 5 days.
The real heavy, not sleeping, think you can fly kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, not that that's the only way a mania can look, but
I mean, it makes sense for him because, I mean, I've seen videos where he's yelling at the paparazzi and then 4 hours later, some kid's trying to rap for him and he's sitting there telling his bodyguards, leave him alone. And he's sitting there smiling this big old smile. And I'm like, I've never seen Kanye smile like that before.
Right.
So he's either delusional or he's on a high right now that no one else has ever been able to have.
If he's telling the truth, a lot of what we saw from Kanye in 2014, 15, 16, or 17 was probably a very high Kanye if he was addicted to opiates.
Yeah.
You know, who knows how many pills that guy was munching on. I read his slavery thing, and one of the things he said about slavery was, you know, slavery was a choice 400 years. At some point it becomes a choice. And then he followed it up with, you had them in numbers. The numbers were in your favor. So I looked up the census in 1860 before the Civil War started. There was something like 3.5 million African Americans in America and like close to 12 million Caucasian people in America. And that number just sort of got, like, at one point I think it was like 32 million white people and like 9 million African American people. The numbers were never in their favor.
Never.
So there's a tangential thought that he's having that is not following through. Like he did that during the all of his speeches ever. Actually, he just gets in this like you said. There's like something that he intends to say, but he can never quite get it out without sounding like a total dick.
It starts out brilliant and then it goes through the 5 Kanye shit filters and it comes out diarrhea.
Yes.
Okay.
But could it also be? I mean, I've heard of people who have this kind of thing where they're hyper intelligent and they basically, when they speak, they think that they think that you're inferring what they're saying. So what ends up happening is a huge confusion because they're only saying half the things they should be saying because they think that you're on the same level as them. So I think that some of his, obviously by the way he writes music, there is a significant amount of intelligence. I just don't know where it's going in halfway through these conversations he has with people.
I think that's what I do. That's a good way to frame how I talk and why people don't understand anything I say.
The esoteric shit.
Are you trying to say that you're on the same level of genius as Kanye?
Yeah, kid, you haven't heard my flow. I'm serious. Like Kanye, I wouldn't want to sit and have dinner with the guy. I think he's probably insufferable. It's probably got to be exhausting to be around him for any length of time. But yeah, he's got some music that, and not only is it brilliant, but it actually like sort of describes what it's like in a lot of ways, or it gives you a sense of what it must be like to be inside his head. He's really good at conveying what it's like to be Kanye. I've said it on here before, but his album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, is kind of what it's all about, being a narcissistic asshole. And he sort of apologizes for it and doesn't apologize for it at the same time. It's a fucking brilliant album.
I feel like yelling at people, though. They're like, oh, Kanye's never been like this. I mean, wasn't it? What year was Katrina when he said George Bush doesn't like black people?
Oh, God, that was... Poor Mike Myers was like,
okay.
Yeah, Mike Myers didn't know what to say because out of the blue. And I'm like, okay, that Kanye's been like this for a long time.
But that was like a 6-word sentence, though.
That was
It's
George Bush hates black people.
So I think it's all been exacerbated. I mean, like he in the MTV Europe Awards or whatever it was. I watched a clip where he came up on stage and did some crazy shit even before the Taylor Swift thing happened. I mean, he's always been like that. It's been exacerbated.
So let me float this by you then.
Hold on, let me finish my thought. Thank you. It's been exacerbated by the drug use and age and probably lack of sleep.
So let me run this by you then. TMZ had Kanye on live. Jamie Foxx blasted TMZ and said, shame on you guys for giving this guy a platform and putting him on display. Something is genuinely wrong with him right now, and you're sort of making a mockery out of Kanye. Do you agree with that, or do you think Jamie Foxx is speaking out of turn?
No, he's being truthful because they didn't even release the full clip. That's what the sad part is. They finally released the full clip after everyone complained that it was highly edited the way that TMZ does. I don't think they did it on purpose. They're obviously editing for time. But he had a longer rant that was more coherent than what was shown on TMZ. And now it's making the rounds around, the internet. And he sounds more like a conspiracy theorist than he does just a crazy dude on drugs. So obviously Jamie Foxx can see. He obviously, being an A-list celebrity, he knows him on a certain level, probably.
Well, they're both musicians too. I mean, they even have a song together.
Well,
a gold digger.
Yeah.
He also runs his mouth with a fair amount of frequency.
Jamie Foxx does?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he
say.
does, but surprisingly, no one knew that he was dating Katie Holmes for how long.
He was dating Katie
I'll give him
Holmes?
props for that.
We didn't know
They
that.
still are.
Katie Holmes couldn't say anything. It was part of her split with Tom Cruise.
Holy
They
balls.
had to
The
keep that shit
Scientology
secret. Yeah.
agreement.
Oh my goodness! Or what?
I think they live
Scientology's
together
gonna
now, don't they?
hire a sniper to take her out?
I don't know, but
I think they bought a house together. That was their whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, there was like a certain cutoff date where any relationship that she had post Tom Cruise had to stay hush hush. I think it was for like 3 years.
Yep, 3 years. Yep.
Yeah.
And
That
all
is-
of a sudden, the day after, they're buying a house together.
Dude, this dude knows more about pop culture shit than I. Hey, do you need a job? Because I do mornings on this radio station called KO, but you know a lot more about this stuff than I do.
Hey, if it paid well enough, I would do anything.
It doesn't.
I love entertainment just because I don't want to say I'm kind of Kanye narcissistic. I like finding out true things about people. Before everyone's praising this person, but they end up being a Nazi, that kind of stuff. That's my favorite kind of thing to bust out on people because. People never forget anything. For certain people, they forget and they're like, "Oh, everything's good to go." Paula Deen, no one remembers what she said. Well, people do, but they don't mention it yet. I think that I like remembering those kind of things, and so that way when people are like, "Oh, have you heard so and so's album?" Like, no, but I remember when he was beating up his girlfriend. I remember.
Would that be Chris Brown?
Yes, but I have a confession. I actually hate him for what he did, but he has a song with Lil Dicky called Freaky Friday, and he makes fun of himself the entire song, basically saying how much of a piece of garbage he is, and it's amazing. It uses the N-word a lot, but it's really funny. And if you don't know who Lil Dicky is, he's a white rapper who's Jewish.
Oh yeah, I know Lil Dicky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than that, yeah, but yeah, I love entertainment because entertainment's fun because I never wish I'd had their lives. I never wish any of that stuff like that. But it is interesting to see different things like the Katie Holmes thing. Who would anyone would have an agreement like that? Like they couldn't be seen with someone for 3 years. That's insane.
That is insane. That's the power of the Tom Cruise.
It was probably really
in
good for their
Scientology.
relationship, actually.
I'm sure it was.
I don't know, you guys. They have a bunch of new commercials on the TV. There's inspirational music playing, and it's well lit. Everybody's smiling in the Scientology commercials.
They have a commercial?
Yeah, they're doing a new ad campaign. It's like when the Mormons come out with new commercials every few years and say, "Hey, remember us, the Mormons?"
Church of Latter-day Saints.
We're
They're
friendly."
probably trying to combat all the bad the television they're getting from that Going Clear and that Liam Remini show and all that stuff against them. It's just look, to whatever they want to do, they want to do. But I've met some former Scientologists, and the way they explain to me, it seems like a super pyramid scheme. And
Totally.
I'm Catholic, and I know there's pyramid schemes in the Catholic Church too. So I mean, every church has got it. It's more on a exposed level because it's celebrities for Scientology.
Right.
Speaking of shady people, I've got to ask, I don't know if you could talk about it, probably not, but why are you being sued by a Disney MC?
So, well, it's a social club.
Can we give a little background before you tell the story?
I'm a president of a social club. I went down to Disneyland before I got a pass, and I had a pass for a little over a year, and then I was like, you know what? I started a new job. Things changed, but saw all these clubs, and but the requirements were like, oh, hey, look, we have to come down once a month or every other weekend.
These are motorcycle clubs.
Social.
Well, no, they're just social clubs.
Okay.
And there's one that's really famous called the Black Death Crew. They're actually not a part of Disney. They're just actually a social club, and their thing is you have to own a Star Wars helmet, and you have to submit a picture to them, and basically all they do is go around doing charity all year round. They select different charities for different areas, and they do charity. When I started looking, I was just looking for people to hang out with in the parks, so that way if me and my wife went by ourselves, it's more fun with bigger groups of people. And there was one day we had 352 people for soaring over the world. So that's how many people were in social clubs to ride the ride.
That's cool.
So yeah, so it's really cool, and almost every single one of them has some sort of charity thing or what you do. And like my club, we're the Tomorrowland Ravagers SC. We're based off of Yondu's character from Guardians of the Galaxy. You do good deeds. We do giveaways in the parks all the time. We have people that are cast members, so they'll go to the cast member store and get exclusive pins or little trinkets and give them away to kids in the park. One of my members has her own Etsy store, so she makes stuff and she takes it out and she gives it to people in the parks, bows, whatever. You're just there to have more fun, because what I realized when I was there going there enough was I see a family of 7 people. That's probably the only time they're going to go to Disneyland for a very long time.
Right.
I'm here once a month. What can I do to make them happier or make their day more special, whatever. So started the club. It's fun. We have about 30 members now. What ended up happening was I actually made friends with these 2 people. I'm not going to use their names because they're going after people for using their name now. But they were in a social club, and I had purchased pins off of the wife. And because I collect the Disney pins a little bit here and there, specific ones. I like, Pirates of the Caribbean and some Marvel stuff.
Okay.
Well, all of a sudden, they were doing a walk for 9/11, and all of a sudden, we have a group where it's like a page where you can voice any grievances you have in the community. People who, just a couple months ago, they had someone, they found out he was a registered sex offender. So, we need to get him out of the community and out of the parks. We don't need that. You know what I mean? It's a kid's park. He doesn't belong around here.
The blue dot in Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly. So we're very proactive about making sure people are friendly and nice and not being drunk, belligerent idiots like everyone says we are. We found out this 4-year-old guy was text messaging or messaging through Instagram. I think she's 12 years old, late at night, early in the morning. There's messages at 1 o'clock in the morning asking if she was going to be his bodyguard when he was at the parks. So we were like, what the fuck, man? Why is a 4-year-old dude messaging a 12-year-old asking if she's going to be his bodyguard? Things started getting real weird, and we were like, this doesn't make any sense. We let people know, hey, just be aware, this is what's going on. We're trying to figure it out. Well, then we found out that he lied about being a firefighter. The money that was supposed to be donated for the 9/11 walk, the numbers didn't add up about what was donated. The stories kept changing. So I made a comment on Facebook. A lot of people did. One of the girls is being sued for saying that she was afraid to go to the walk on Facebook. That's what she's being sued for. So she's having to pay thousands of dollars to get this solved because she said that she was afraid to go to the walk. My comment was he told several people he had special coins that got him into private areas of the park. And I was like, what? And I saw it, and all it was the Tomorrowland coin from that George Clooney movie. And I go, that's mass produced. That's not anything special. So my comment was, I'm going to see him at the pin meet. And I said, if anyone has a link to the coin, I want to put that coin on the table and see that look on that fucker's face. So now I'm involved in a lawsuit over that.
But for what is he suing you for, though? I mean,
is it threats?
They're basically saying that this is what's funny. I don't see how the judge has taken it seriously so long. I think he's just giving him time to file a proper response or something. But what happened was they first said that his wife lost her job because she couldn't leave the house because she was afraid, and a couple other things. There's a bigger group that they're involved in it, but they're lumping us together with them, and they didn't do anything wrong either. They're protecting the community, but they're saying that they lost wages because she couldn't go to work and all this kind of stuff of that, and then they refiled it saying that she had to quit her job because she was too sick to go to work. And it's been changing over and over again. We're having to file some stuff. We just filed some stuff last week. The next hearing date's in May. And the problem we're running into is, since we're lumped in with Disney, because they're suing Disneyland too, the LA Times is putting us in a bad light because LA Times has a beef with Disneyland or Disney in general.
So I think I saw the article on NPR, because I don't really follow LA Times. I follow NPR. So that's the one. I won't mention names if you don't.
No, I wouldn't if I were you. I don't want to get you guys sucked into it. They'll go after you if you mention their name. That's how they've been doing it lately. So
what's the NPR article then? What was the...
So the NPR article mentioned, I shared it on my Facebook because first I did not know that they had social clubs. And the way they portrayed it was that there was this mafia type feel to these Disneyland social clubs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was what NPR is the most boring newspaper alive. So there's not that same element of flair that the LA Times would have in bias, but it was still the same kind of concept of, there are these nefarious social clubs that have turned horrible and are now threatening people that if they don't pay them.
Because he said the guy claimed that one of the members of another club threatened him for $500 protection money. And I'm like, wait, what? And the funny part is the guy was working that day. There's no way he could have talked to him. He has proof that he was working on the day that he said it would happen. So that's a blatant lie. And now that's disappeared. That claim is gone now. What makes this whole thing worse, which I've shared, we have a legal defense. They actually created a nonprofit for this. It's become so bad that they had to create a nonprofit to help with the legal funds, because we're gonna keep this entity going. I think it's almost at $20,000 just for one lawyer. But he's suing the mother of the daughter who he was messaging.
What?
Yes, and that's not mentioned in the but for this people don't know. Disney, there was like a financial thing that I guess the finance department of LA Times did an article about Disney that Disney didn't like. So Disney didn't allow the entertainment person to come to a certain premiere of a movie. So now ever since then, they've been bad blood. So they don't put the certain stuff, because they put an article out about the first hearing, and one of the defendants threw out a bunch of info in the air on purpose to see if the LA Times guy would report it, and he didn't. He refused to report it. And we have proof of everything. We have the messages, all that stuff. But yes, he is suing the mother of the daughter that he was messaging.
There's so much drama.
I like to go to
funny.
Disneyland and go to Cars Land first and get a fast pass for the Cars Racer, and that's that's about it.
I have noticed, like, it's funny because I've been to Disneyland so many freaking times in my life, but I've noticed that since I read that article and since you mentioned that Chris was involved in this,
You noticed the jackets?
I've noticed the jackets
Yeah.
a lot. The cuts. The last time we were there, I don't know if Ian told you, a woman from the Rum Runner said to say hi.
Oh, yes. And see, that's the funny part is that we get approached. What's funny is, I don't know if I don't reprove this word, use this word, but I got called a fucking faggot for wearing the vest. And
what?
I was like, so
At Disneyland you got called that?
Yeah,
That's
in
not
the park.
happy.
And I looked at the guy and I go, and I'm not the one using that language in the park. And he just looked at me and walked off.
Right, people.
And I was like, this is so ridiculous. I go, you know what? I'm gonna keep wearing it. And what's funny though is that you don't see that happen. So there's a meetup every so often. They have at Sonoma. It's all a big group of people and everyone's friendly. And what's funny is, if you're in the community, you realize, I think it's weird, but everybody hugs each other. So it's like, we're the complete opposite of what they're saying we are.
God, for the longest time, I thought you guys were a motorcycle club.
No.
It's just the cut. It's just because of the vest.
Well, I saw that person from the Renegades or whatever it was, and I messaged him like, "Hey, so and so from the Renegades, do I need to cut a bitch? Is she a rival? Are we going to take her out?"
Rum Runners.
Rum Runners, yeah. Because I'll go Sons of Anarchy on her.
And they're all funny. Like, so the Rum Runners, they're actually they're a great club. They actually go around running 5Ks and 10Ks. The president actually has done the coast-to-coast thing when he was still going for Disneyland and Disney World. And I think he went to Disney Paris, too. So, like, they're based around running. There's some LGBT clubs. You would be surprised. If there's a website, I'll even send it to Ian, that has a list of every single club there is. And you'll be surprised at how many it's fun-loving. Everyone has fun. This has put a damper on things. But we stand strong together, and we're like, we're not going to take this, because we didn't just out there and go, oh, hey, screw this guy. We're like, no, this dude was messaging a 12-year-old girl. Then he lied about being a firefighter. And then magically they were collecting money through 3 different PayPals, and the money that got donated, nothing added up. Everyone was questioning it, but no one would answer us. So it's more along the lines of it's kind of crazy. But my favorite part was, I've asked plenty of lawyers, and they said I had to respond because I got served. But they said, you could have called the man the worst thing in the world, but it's all your opinion.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what anyone posts on Facebook. My favorite part, though, is it's going to come to light pretty soon. The guy has failed to delete his Twitter account. I'm the master snooper, and I have all these screenshots of one of the wife threatening to sue 7 different companies for bad service. Geico, AT&T, Uverse, Charter. It's like she just wants money. The other guy talks about how he's not violent, yet he has a quote saying, hey, I want someone to take care of someone for me, things like that. And I'm just like, so you're holding us responsible for our stuff. We're going to hold you responsible for what you say, and you messaging a 12-year-old girl, which is highly inappropriate. Nothing in it is going to be, pedophilia-like, but that's grooming. So that's what we're trying to prove right now is like, look, this guy is not a good dude. and what he's saying is not cool. And I got text messages from all my friends. Oh, look, see your gang friends are up to it again, and blah blah blah. And little did they know I'm involved in it. It's tough because everyone makes fun of it, and then now they're like, oh, so you guys are ruining Disney. But I don't know if you saw what Disney said. They were in a report saying that they appreciate us because we enjoy Disney the way it's intended. We already know Disney has our back, so that's beneficial to us.
That's crazy. Just this whole culture that goes along with Disney and being a Disney fan, and we're just dipping our toes into it now. We got the annual passes, and I'm approaching the annual passes like I approach a buffet. I'm going to get my money's worth out of it.
Hey, you know what? You got to make the kids happy, right?
Yeah, and speaking of, because Chris is going to get a front row seat to this, his wife's pregnant. They just found out they're having a baby boy.
Nice.
They did the gender reveal. Okay, so you pop that balloon and blue confetti comes out. How relieved were you?
For multiple reasons. I was happy to have a boy. On the sadder note, I'm the last person in my family with my name. So it's going to carry on my last name. So my grandma got all emotional. And then my dad called a cousin because his son died of leukemia and he at 16, and he was the other Machado left. So it was kind of emotional for that, but what they don't tell you is it's scary as shit popping that balloon, because all I'm thinking about is I'm going to push this needle in and it's not going to pop. It's going to stab me in the finger. I'm going to have a needle sticking in my thumb, or I'm going to push it and it's going to hit the ground and my wife's going to step on it and she's going to be pissed at me for that. So if you watch the video, I'm very gently holding the needle and I'm like, please just pop right away. And it did. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I was like, this is pretty awesome. And what I didn't show was it's my older stepsister who threw the party. She actually, in case the balloon didn't work, because she's heard of horror stories where they mix, it's like it's green instead of being blue. The cupcakes were blue and pink on top, and when you bit into them, they were blue on the inside. So as a backup.
Well, congratulations. I always said when we found out Michelle was pregnant, I never even for a moment entertained the fact that we might have girls. I've always said I will have boys and nothing else. And my rationale behind it is far more dark and much more cynical. But girls have periods and bras and underwear issues, and they get pregnant. And if I had a girl and she came home at 16 and I was a shitty dad and she was like, Dad, I'm pregnant. Now I got to give up whatever spare room I have left for some other kid in my house, and then I have to go kick the shit out of some kid.
How did the universe not punish you for saying you were only going to have boys and you actually got the boys?
Because
that's not how karma works.
Because I'm an amazing person, and the universe was like, he said he only wants boys. We're only going to give this man boys.
Yeah, it's a good thing we didn't have any of them inferior girls with their periods and they're getting pregnant on their own.
I never said inferior. I just said far more scary. I'm not emotionally equipped to handle it.
But hey, if you had a girl and she got pregnant at 16, you could end up on MTV and making lots of money.
Or
that is the dream.
If I have a boy that gets a girl pregnant, what then? Is it? I'm just not.
If I have a boy, if Sean comes home at 16 or 17 or 18 or whatever and says, Dad, I screwed up. I got my girlfriend pregnant. All I'm saying is, looks like you joined in the army. My job's done.
Nope. Just because you're a dick about it, I'm going to invite her to live with us.
Yeah, but with the boy too, I feel like you could smack him around a little bit. Not bad, but you could be like, "Hey, stupid! You're not going to hit your pregnant daughter. That would be god awful." You smack your son in the back of the head. It's like, yeah, you deserve that because you're being an idiot, and I taught you better.
Oh man, you and I right now totally twinning in that mindset.
I have so much. You were failing me, Kelly.
Are you rage quiet right now?
Why am I getting the death stare? I didn't say shit.
Right.
What the fuck? I have 2 boys and a daughter, and they are the lights of my life. I love them all equally and in indistinguishable ways.
Not all the time. You don't love them. I don't love my kids all equally all the time.
No, all the time equally. Every time.
No, that's physically impossible. If you're being honest with yourself. My stepmom, it's kind of sad. My niece was afraid that we were going to have a girl because if there was another girl, she wouldn't be loved as much. And I looked at her and I go, you have 2 brothers and you. your grandma and your mom love you more than she loves your brothers. So just remember that, and it's a fact. So,
all right, let's move into what we find delightful this week. Chris from FOMOcast is joining us this week. So we give you the option, Chris. Do you want to go first with what you find delightful this week, or do you want some examples set and go second or third?
I'll go second or third. I want to hear what you guys got.
Okay, I'm going to double dip again. I know that drives you up the wall, Michelle. I find two things delightful this week. The first thing I find delightful this week is The Greatest Showman.
Lovely film.
That film, I cannot stand musicals. Musicals can kiss my ass. I think they're a waste of time. I think that every time they're singing is a time that they're taking up with worthwhile dialogue that could be funny or sad or emotional, and I hate singing in movies. However, Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, Zendaya in this one stole my heart, gave me all the feels.
But so I'm gonna push you on this a little bit because I agree it was an awesome movie. But
Okay.
this is like the most traditional musical. Like if you hate musicals, you should hate this movie.
You're
I hate
absolutely
that
right.
movie.
I'm not arguing with you.
I hate that movie.
I think what it is it's the music itself is not okay. So go back to Sound of Music. Sound of Music is orchestra, it's violins, cellos, it's a windwood, the brass.
Swelling.
Right. This was, if you listen to this is more electric, it's current, it's set in the late 1800s with the instruments of today. It's got.
So did you like Moulin Rouge?
I never saw it.
What the fuck?
Never saw it.
Oh, dude, we're watching
Okay,
Moulin Rouge.
let's not
I'm actually
know.
with Ian on this one. That was probably one of my favorite movies so far this year, besides 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Yeah, that one was amazing too.
The Greatest Showman. I don't know what it was. I don't like musicals. I think they're dumb. I hated the TV show that was a musical that Hugh Jackman was in, and it was something about the way the music they had wasn't the operatic, just trying to make you sleep. It was trying to be more fun and upbeat. And even though I know half the story's a lie, I was like, this is fantastic.
The people who did the music for this are the people who wrote La La Land, the music for La La Land.
Ooh,
So if you
okay.
guys haven't seen La La Land, did you guys?
I heard
did
La
you
La
see
Land
that?
was shit.
No, man, I love that movie. Fuck
Did you? Oh,
You shut up about La La Land.
love you.
So I don't like any of these.
You didn't see La La Land.
Hey, Michelle
Don't be
doesn't-
talking.
I hate.
Michelle doesn't
hate
like this movie to the
musicals.
point
Keep La La
that
Land's name out your mouth.
I put some of the songs from The Greatest Showman on my playlist, and the minute it came on, which one was it?
I don't care. It was stupid.
Doesn't
Whatever
it,
it was.
Michelle, I've never seen her with more piss and vinegar. Turn this shit off. It reminds me of that fucking
What's
gospel
that
music.
uplifting ass circus shit?
I'm like, no, this is not happening. This is shit that my grandparents listened to when I was in the fucking car with them. I have like a visceral reaction to it.
I don't want to hear this song called "From Now On" about how I'm never
Oh,
going to
God,
get
that's what it
blinded.
is!
I'm never going to get blinded by the big city lights because everything that I need and love is right here in my own home with my wife and children. I don't want to hear that.
No, I don't. I don't.
If you
I
can
want to hear
watch-
Kanye.
If you can watch the bearded lady sing about how this is her and she's not going to apologize for it without getting a little bit verklempt.
That's
Or
the
you
other
could
one that I
just
put on there.
Fucking
This is
shave
me.
your beard and take some estrogen shots. It's not that difficult.
What the? Where did you come
It was the
from?
1800s.
Yeah, it was 1800s, Michelle.
So you
Michelle.
could shave.
She can be whoever she wants to be.
Yeah, I am a little disappointed that much like A Million Ways to Die in the West, she didn't go to the beard and mustache shop and get some oil to spiff it up a little bit.
Right?
But that really could have been a financial thing. You know, we don't know what she did.
We don't know what her
afterwards.
situation was.
Yeah,
We know she was underpaid and underappreciated.
most definitely.
Okay, I'm gonna tap out on the Greatest Showman. Go.
Anyway, that's the first thing. But the second thing I find delightful, we got it today, guys. It is in the house.
What is it?
The Badge a Minute.
Yeah.
We can now make buttons for That's Delightful. If
You did. They were grammatically incorrect. I will fix them for you.
Yeah, I know they were. If you if you ever need a
Part of our charm.
if you ever need a 2 1/4 inch black and white button because nobody
Misspelled.
here has a color printer, we can now make buttons.
Will you make me a button that says Ian made me this button?
In 1 minute, I can make it because it's a badge a minute.
Yes. That's what I want, a button that says Ian made me this button.
That is what I find delightful this week. Michelle, why don't you go?
So I haven't seen it yet, and I want to. I'm just delightful that it exists, or I find it delightful that it exists. That Rachel Dolezal documentary on Netflix, The Rachel Divide.
What?
So does everybody remember Rachel Dolezal?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So
NAACP, right? The
Yep.
president.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, she I was thinking, at first I thought you got it wrong. I was like, the NCAA. No, never mind. That's not right. Anyway, so I just think it's going to be, it's an interesting conversation that I think can take a lot of different turns. And so I'm excited to see what it can bring about, because there is a woman who strongly identifies as a different race. And it brings up a lot of questions because people are so freaked out by it because she's white wanting to be black. Whereas when, never mind. Anyway, it just looks like it's going to...
When you're black and you try and be white, they call you an Uncle Tom.
Right.
But,
okay. And it's a very interesting centerpiece or conversation piece. She's just, NPR did a really good article talking about the documentary, and they said in there that, the producer said she stands firm behind her racial identity and says that she has no plans to change who she is. And so, there are a lot of allegations of abuse that she made against her family. And they have interviews with her family where, the other kids are saying that it didn't necessarily happen like that. So I'm just excited to see it. I like that stuff.
Is that currently on Netflix now,
Yes.
or it's coming?
No, it's on.
Okay.
Is this taking a position of, is it in a fairly neutral position, or is it saying that she's...
So it's actually, they said it's very critical of her, which she did not like at first. But what they did do well was kind of focus on the positive aspects of her children.
Okay.
So, and kind of how everything... I think it's a conversation that should be had. I mean, it's just a new concept for people to wrap their heads around is, can we have a cross-racial identity? Because some people do. And is it okay? Is it not okay? So it's something that can be talked about, but I think everybody's going to have an immediate visceral reaction.
Okay. Kelly, what do you find delightful this week?
It's a mild double dip, but it comes from the same end of the pond. So HBO doesn't have its Game of Thrones right now. Don't glaze over. That's the only thing I'm saying about Game of Thrones is the name, Game of Thrones.
Multiple times, apparently.
I'll Game of Thrones your asses.
Can you say "got" so it goes quicker?
I'll got you. But we have two comedy shows that make up quite a 1-2 punch on Sunday nights. The first one I want to talk about is Barry, which is just the greatest show. I'm really enjoying it. Have you watched Barry at all, you guys?
I'm 3 episodes in. It's a hard watch for me right now, but I'm going to go back and give it another try uninterrupted. What about you, Chris? Have you watched it yet?
No, I've been hearing that Bill Hader's really great in it. I'm still trying to catch up on so much different stuff for the podcast that I'm behind.
Yeah.
But I have heard that it's fantastic, especially Bill Hader being Bill Hader, but he's not being his typical character self. It's more a new role, not very Saturday Night Live-ish.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because he's an impersonator at heart. I mean, he can do so many different voices. He can play different famous people. I mean, he's Stefan, for God's sake. And he's playing this stoic ex-Marine sniper who is a hitman. He's very internal. He doesn't display a lot of emotion. He's a great actor, but he's not using any of his usual skills. He is just doing a very quiet performance. But he plays a hitman who stumbles into a theater class on accident and decides that this is what he wants his life to be now, is he wants to be an actor. And let's be clear, he's not a good actor, which is part of what makes it really fun, is that he, I think, is connecting with something really deep inside of himself, but he does not have acting chops. He's not good. But he does have a lot of depth of emotion, and it's very funny. Henry Winkler plays a theater teacher who is wildly overconfident. It's just a lot of fun. So that's one, and I highly recommend Barry. But the other is that Silicon Valley is killing it.
Oh, yes.
And there's a thing I want to talk about because you guys all know that I live in fear of our robot overlords taking over someday. And the thing I want to say is that that got talked about this last week on Silicon Valley. One of the characters is named Guilfoyle, who is a Satanist, sort of a very antisocial, paranoid kind of guy. They get a chance to work with a company that's making some AI and put them on their new internet network that they're creating. And he's very scared because he doesn't want to put AI on their big infinite network because that might trigger the machines taking over the world. And as he thinks about it, he comes around and he comes up to another character and he mentions something called Rocco's Basilisk. I don't know if you've seen this episode, Ian. But he says, he asked this other character, "Are you familiar with the concept of Rocco's basilisk?" And he says, "No, but I guess you're going to tell me." And basically what it is what I'm talking about, this idea that we better fucking toe the line with the machines now, because someday they're going to become sentient, and they're going to look at the backlog of all the shit we talked, and they're going to punish the people who didn't set the table for them. So it's nice to have Guilfoyle on my side. He's a good guy to have on your team. He once hijacked a refrigerator and uploaded porn to their network, made it display all across the country. Silicon Valley is a great show, and pay tribute to your robot overlords while you still can.
I am current. I have seen that episode. I love Silicon Valley. It's top 3 right now. TV
So
shows.
good.
Love it. Chris, finish us out, man. What do you find delightful this week?
Well, since it's the sticking with the TV type of theme, there's 2 things I got. Well, I'm super excited. They announced they did a trailer for 13 Reasons Why season 2, and it looks insane because it basically says the tapes, so they're just the start, and you get a little glimpse of what's going to happen. The first season I binge watched, I think, in 2 days, and it's actually what started our podcast, was watching that so fast to try and beat everybody else. Obviously, people hated it because people claimed that their kids committed suicide because they watched the show. But I really enjoyed it. I loved everybody in it, mostly nobody actors in it. So that was perfect. I don't know if you guys liked it as much as a lot of people did. People were hit and miss with 13 Reasons Why.
We did a whole episode on it.
That was one of our first episodes too.
First 2 or 3,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
So it hits home just because it's, most kids don't have the outlet, whatever. It was great, but sadly I'm more excited. Westworld's back, and it's mind screwing me because it literally, I don't even know what's going on. It's doing these weird time jump thingies that are just throwing my brain for a loop, and I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is, and I'm sitting there having to rewind it like 15 times an episode to go, wait, what time is this? When did this happen? Kind of thing. I wish they wouldn't take so long to film it, but I knew it was going to happen because the first season, one of the guys they filmed in it died the previous year. So I knew it takes a while to film this. But I love Westworld because it's along the same thing about the sentient beings.
Yeah.
These sentient beings are taking over. And
just how screwed we are when they decide to get around to killing us off.
And they're punishing. They're not just I'm going to shoot this person. No, let's shoot him in the leg. No, let's make them suffer, and it's just insane. And then I'm excited for them to introduce the new worlds and everything. And
Samurai World is going to be amazing.
The Samurai World, and then I saw a tiger, and I'm like, wait, where'd the tiger from? I hope the tiger's from like somewhere else because this is going to be freaking amazing. And obviously, everything I do revolves around entertainment for the most part, but Netflix has slowed down for the most part. So now it's sticking with HBO. I haven't watched much of Silicon Valley. I loved Kumail Nanjiani, so that's the reason why I started watching it. So I need to go back. But Westworld, it's on another level, and I advise anyone who hasn't watched it, watch the whole first season. And I think you can get a free trial of HBO Go to watch it, just to binge it real quick. Because if you're not up to date to it now, don't start because it's the most confusing show I've ever watched in my entire life.
Yeah, I gotta go back and start that again. I got a couple episodes in and got lost a little bit, and
that show does not it doesn't explain shit to you. You gotta just
it's not an easy
wait in
watch.
and figure it out.
Unlike Silicon Valley, where like the most epic scene from that entire show is when they're trying to figure out how many dicks they can jerk.
Tip efficiency.
So not same. All right, we had Chris from FOMOcast. Where do we find you at?
Oh, it's facebook.com/FOMOcast.
And then you and I both have a built-in website at podbros.com.
Yes, we do. Podbros.com. Support them. They have some what's funny is I listened to the Language of Bromance, and that was our little group thingy, and I'm glad they put me on the group because their podcast is hilarious. They're just a couple dudes, and they talk about the most gruesome, horrible stuff, and then they'll start making jokes, and the jokes make so much sense it's not even funny. I was sitting there laughing, and I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at this. This is something horrible about someone escaping prison and murdering people, but the way they're talking about the dude like he's just a regular Joe Schmo, it was just the way they do it. It's fantastic.
Have you been on with them yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I was on the road for almost 2.5 months.
Okay.
So I was coming home during my federal rest days to record the podcast, then going right back up to Sacramento, and I was gone, so much. I haven't been able to contact nobody. You got it perfect where I'm home for a couple weeks just to record this. And like I talked about on our podcast about your podcast is, it doesn't matter what your political view is. The way you guys bring up stuff, it feels more, you're not attacking someone's policy. You're literally looking at something completely that's so ridiculous. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or you're liberal. You're going to go, why was someone making this decision, or why was someone doing this? This is completely stupid. So it's not, you're not getting it. You're not attacking anyone. You're not being bipartisan. You're doing good work with the political stuff. And then every once in a while, having some fun episodes that deviate from the plan.
Getting Kelly good and drunk. Oh, well, shit, man. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm glad we got connected on this. Like I said before we started this interview or this crossover show or whatever you want to call it, Chris and I have this history that goes back a year because we both were kind of like, how's yours going? Good. How's yours going? Good. It was just sort of this like. It all worked out really well. I'm glad to see you guys are thriving because you guys have a good show. I think you guys have really kind of hit your stride, and I'm glad you got in on the Pod Bros. Before you join the Pod Bros, and no one has told me yet what they said about us, but the guy that runs the Pod Bros will put up on the Facebook page, hey, such and such podcast wants to be a part of the network. Can we get some people to listen real quick just to see if it's worth the time or not? And everybody put up there. They got a good show. They talk about. They have a good chemistry. They talk about. It's an interesting take on the FOMO take. Nobody's really making that take right now. So I'm glad to see you guys are thriving, man. I hope it continues for you.
It should. I'm gonna be now that I'm having a kid. I'm stuck in this town for 18 years, I guess.
Yeah, you ain't going anywhere, dude.
No, I'm not going anywhere. But my friend Arnaldo, I've known him since high school, so we go way back. And he actually is on the liberal side, so we do talk politics. It got interesting when we mentioned your podcast because I didn't even know that. I don't like talking politics. I don't even, it's something that's off limits for the most part. I keep up to date on it, so I know if someone's being stupid, I can call them out and be like, face. But
Moted.
Exactly. But for the most part, we love everything entertainment. And like I tell everybody, my takeaway when I talk to people is fuck Rotten Tomatoes. Don't listen to them. Don't talk to them. Don't do none of that stuff because they're owned by Fandango. And the only reason why Fandango is going to push you to a certain movie is because they're sponsoring it or they're tied to it. So, like Get Out, the movie, one negative review was from that one dude who was just being a douchebag. And they could have had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes the first time ever, and some guy had to be a dick and knock it down for no good reason. So that's the main takeaway. If anyone listens today about anything, is fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
God,
fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
There's always one, right? Fuck. Hey, can we make that another line in the sand that we draw on That's Delightful? Fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
Fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
Hey,
Fuck
there you
Rotten
go.
Tomatoes.
Line has been drawn. Chris, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, whatever Ian paid you to say you like Superman, it wasn't enough. That's all I'm saying.
All right, we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to That's Delightful. Online at totallydelightfulstuff.com, facebook.com/That's Delightful, and on Twitter at That's Delightful1.